Hi guys, James here from Magical Productions, and welcome to the first compilation of Semajically AI, the series where I create AI scenarios and episodically show them. But for this first compilation, I've decided to string together episodes 1 to 7 of the first 28. So without further ado, let's get on with it, shall we? And sit back, relax, and enjoy Semajically AI, episodes 1 to 7.
Hi guys, and welcome to the start of a brand new series made entirely using an AI app. This is Semajically AI. In this series, you will see a new AI story in each episode. This is the very first episode, and our first story is entitled The Beach Incident. It was a boiling hot day in July, and several families had flocked to the Mid-Hampton beach and were all enjoying the fun. Lucy Morgan was surfing, as she usually did each time she visited the beach. She was a very beautiful young woman who had lots of male suitors.
Her teenage younger sister Daisy was water skiing for the first time since learning how to do so. Their parents, Emma and Gerald, were just sunbathing like most of the other parents.
Bing Riley was having a swim in the sea to keep cool. He was a very level-headed teenager who always tried to see the good in others.
His younger sister Mozilla was a high-spirited, red-headed preteen girl who was building a massive sandcastle with their little cousin Vicky.
They were trying to build the biggest sandcastle on the whole beach.
That was until a troublemaking 10-year-old boy came over and started stomping all over it. This boy's name was Luke Stenner, and he was the naughtiest boy in the neighborhood. When Mozilla tried to stop him, he just gave her a dirty look and told her to bugger off. When their families saw this, they rushed over to help. Mozilla's parents, Siri and Alexa, managed to pull her away just in time to prevent a fight from breaking out, along with little Vicky, their niece. Breaking off for a moment to point out that the Stenners are actually a creation of my best friend Darren Stratton. Thanks, bro. Appreciated. Back to the story at hand, where Luke's family, Alexander, his father, Tricia, his mother, and Amanda, his older sister, had all come to stop him from causing any real damage by holding him back. "What on earth were you thinking, Luke?" Alexander demanded after seeing the trashed sandcastle. Luke just stood there smirking at him. "Luke, I am your father!" yelled Alexander. "Whatever, Darth Vader!" scowled Luke. "Don't you dare talk to your father like that!" Tricia scolded. Luke was in no mood for a lecture, so he tried to walk away, but Amanda blocked his way. "And where do you think you're going?" she asked. This is when the incident happened, as Luke shoved her backwards and she fell into the sea. Luke was too fast for anyone to stop, as he rushed forward and grabbed Amanda up, grabbed her by the hair and dragged her crying into the water, where he started hitting and punching her around, and the two fought as they got out into the sea.
Lucy and Daisy Morgan jumped in and tried to pull them apart, but were unsuccessful as Luke thumped Amanda, causing her to fall backwards and disappear under the water. She began to panic because she couldn't swim and disappeared under the surface.
Lucy dove down and pulled her out, summoning the lifeguard who rushed over to help them, while Daisy caught a hold of Luke and dragged him back to the beach. She was furious with him for what he'd just done to his own sister.
She scolded him, calling him a monster, and told him he belonged in prison. Luckily, they were able to save Amanda's life, but they had to send her to the hospital.
Unbeknownst to anyone, a group of 4 very powerful people had seen the whole thing on their view screen and come down to see what they could do. The special thing about these 4 people was the fact that they were all immortal, and each had a different form of immortality.
Stephen Marsh was also known as the Eternal Fisherman, whose immortality caused him to rapidly age and die, only to revert back to his youthful appearance and return to life.
Amber Coleman, the medieval noblewoman who never aged, and respawned each time she died, and returned to life in a forest fully healed, and had to change her name every time this happened to protect her identity.
Jenny, the woman who could regenerate, who could survive any form of death by regenerating her body and returning to life as long as there was something left of her for her regeneration to be triggered. And a very mysterious male immortal whose immortality was just as much of a mystery as the man himself. When they saw what had happened, they all gave Luke Stenner such a telling off for his dangerous behavior. He refused to believe them when they told him they were immortal, and decided to test it out on Jenny by grabbing a jagged stick and stabbing her through the stomach, causing her to splutter, collapse, and die only for her stomach to regenerate, bringing her back to life.
As she got back to her feet and brushed herself off, Luke prepared his cap gun to shoot Amber, only to end up shooting Steven instead, causing him to rapidly age and drop dead, only for his body to revert to his youthful appearance, and he stood back up, alive, whole, and still immortal.
Now you've had your proof. You have to stop this dangerous behavior.
Luke just shrugged and walked away.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Semajically AI. This is the second episode of the series, and tonight's story, The Inhabitants of the Magic Mansion. Here we go. Deep within the woods, hidden by very powerful magical barriers, there stood a huge mansion. This was no ordinary mansion. It was inhabited by a whole host of wizards, witches, and other magical beings. It was owned by a very powerful old wizard named Osiris the Great.
And he was renting out the rooms to his magical tenants, most of whom were powerful witches and wizards in their own right.
Frank Flitterbloom was one of his favourite tenants, as he was a young wizard with great power and magical knowledge, and whose brand of magic was chiefly maintenance.
He always paid his rent on time and normally got to upgrade his room as a result.
He worked as a magical maintenance man, for which he earned 1,450 gold in weekly wages, and paid 650 gold a month for his rent, which was low considering his wages.
Zirconia Cubits was a young witch who was very good with animals and looked after all the magical creatures Osiris kept in the grounds of the mansion.
There were phoenixes, a herd of Pegasus horses, fairies, centaurs, gnomes, and mermaids.
She was so good with the magical creatures that she had tamed every phoenix in the grounds.
The only creature she wasn't allowed to work with due to their dangerous nature were the dragons who lived out in the mansion woods.
She earned 2,458 gold a month in wages and paid 650 rent every month.
Her brand of magic allowed her to talk to and understand whichever creature she was caring for at any time.
All the magical tenants of the Magic Mansion had many magical talents and were all as important as each other.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Semajically AI. This is the third episode, and the title of this story is Justin's Incredible Adventure in Time. Justin Barnes was a young man who was prone to daydreaming about time travel and imagined what he would do if he had a time machine. His parents constantly told him to stop dreaming and come down to earth. Time travel doesn't exist as we all know, or does it? Well, today was Justin's lucky day, but he didn't know it yet. As he drove to work that morning, he passed under a tunnel when he was stopped by a man in a grey suit with a silver wing-shaped badge on his lapel. He gave Justin an attachment to put on his dashboard. It was a dashboard time machine, which Justin attached to his dashboard straight away. The man explained to him how the time machine worked and warned him not to interfere with history, as even the tiniest change could alter the future in ways he couldn't imagine. Thanking him for the warning, Justin shook his hand and drove on. As he drove down the motorway, he activated his new time machine and set the time circuits for September 8, 1976, and drove on very fast, only to be blasted back in time. He arrived in a very busy street full of people dressed in the clothes one might expect to see in the 1970s. As he slowed down, he got a clear reading of the time and location of his arrival. He had indeed travelled back to September 8, 1976, and needed to be extra careful not to get involved with anything, as this was his grandfather Ross's childhood he'd come back to. Ross was only 7 years old at this time, and Justin knew he must not get involved with his life now, otherwise he would not come to exist. He switched off the time machine, giving it the appearance of a detachable radio clock, and detached it to prevent it from being stolen. He then parked his car and decided to look around. He walked around the city, being careful not to let anyone see him. But it wasn't long before someone did, and stopped to talk to him. The person who noticed him was a young woman named Joanne Kraling, and she was most interested in him as he didn't look like he belonged there. She invited him out to lunch at the local cafe and asked him where he was from. He told her his name was Justin Barnes, and he was visiting from the year 2024. She looked at him thinking, is this man crazy? He believes he's from 48 years in the future, before looking at him and saying, are you saying you're from 48 years in the future? She asked him. He confirmed that he was indeed saying he came from the future, and she naturally thought he was crazy, telling him they both knew that wasn't true. Realizing his mistake, he made a dash for his car and made it back, reattached the time machine, set it for his home era, and sped off into the future. He arrived safely back in 2024, right after the man who gave him the time machine had disappeared. He drove to his house and parked his car, only to be approached by the present-day middle-aged Joanne Kraling, who asked him if he was okay.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Semajically AI. This is the 4th episode, and we are about to tell you this story, The Eternal Fisherman. Let me take you back in time to medieval England, where a young fisherman was just casting off in the hopes of catching lots of fish for his family's dinner that night. As he cast his rod into the lake, he sat back and relaxed as he fished. Everything was normal that day, clear blue sky and a brightly shining sun. That was until the sun randomly disappeared behind a cloud, the sky went grey, and suddenly a storm began to brew out of nowhere. As he reeled in his rod without catching anything and rowed frantically back to land, he was suddenly struck by a very powerful flash of bright light, surging him with some strong, unknown force before throwing him in the lake with a splash. Being a good swimmer, he managed to swim back to the shore and staggered for a bit before collapsing to the ground as though dead. Within seconds, his rapidly aged body reverted back to his youthful appearance and regained consciousness, breathing deeply. He wondered what had happened to him as he walked into his town to buy some fish from the market, only to be struck by an arrow that had gone astray, causing him to rapidly age and drop dead once again. The same thing happened as before. His body reverted back to his youthful appearance and he returned to life. He didn't have time to wonder what was going on as the people of his town grew suspicious of him, thinking he was in league with the devil, and ran him out of town. Over the next decade, he kept a low profile, trying not to let himself be seen, only to find himself being hunted down in an angry mob and burned at the stake, only to rapidly age, die, revert back to being a young man, and return to life for the 3rd time. He made a run for it before they tried to burn him again. It was then that he realized that this was going to keep happening every time he suffered a mortal wound. He'd rapidly age, die, revert back to his youthful appearance and return to life. He was now immortal and had to go into hiding for most of his life. In 1945, he finally came out of hiding, assumed the name of Stephen Marsh, and enrolled himself in university to study history, and graduated in 1949, now a fully trained historian, and couldn't wait to share his expertise. But he was going to be very careful not to reveal his true identity to anyone. By 1953, he was hired as a history professor at Merneghan University, and his classes became a hit with students. They wondered how their professor could look so young, but didn't let him know they secretly knew his true identity. Over the next 7 decades, he taught generations of history students and eventually decided to retire for a quiet life. That's when he discovered there was a group of 3 other immortals operating in secret to protect the world. Amber Coleman, Jenny, and a mysterious man whose identity was shrouded in mystery as well as his immortality. They invited him to join them, briefed him on what they actually did, and he accepted his place amongst them. That very same day, they received a red alert from the beach in Midhampton and had to go and intervene. There, they met and had to help discipline a troublemaking 10-year-old boy named Luke Stenner for his dangerous behavior after he'd tried to drown his own sister. A reminder that the Stenners were created by my best friend Darren Stratton. Thanks again, brother. Appreciated. This episode is a prequel to the first episode, explaining the backstory of Stephen Marsh, the Eternal
Hey
Fisherman.
everyone, welcome back to Semajically AI for the 5th episode. We are about to return to the town of Midhampton to meet and spend time with one of the many families. Let's get ready to meet. The Allen family. Tony and Serena Allen are a happy married couple who live at number 18 Richmond Drive. They have a young daughter named Brittany, who is 11 years old and can be quite naughty at times, and this was one of those times. It all started first thing this morning as she woke up. Serena entered to say good morning and lay out some clothes for her.
Come on, you. It's time to get up.
But I've only just woken up.
Serena was not in the mood for messing around and put her hands on her hips.
We don't laze about in this house. You know that perfectly well. So get out of that bed and put on these clothes this instant and stop being naughty.
She scolded before leaving her room. Brittany crossly got out of bed and got dressed.
So unfair.
She stopped as she stomped downstairs.
Brittany, please don't be stroppy.
Shut up, Dad.
And please don't speak to me like that.
Shut up, Dad.
This time it was Serena who reacted to their daughter's rudeness. She smacked her on the wrist.
Young lady, how dare you speak to your father like that? That was extremely rude of you.
Whatever.
Serena smacked her again.
How dare you shout at me? That was very rude and naughty of you. If you don't stop being naughty like a toddler, I will turn you over my knee and smack your bottom.
After breakfast, Serena placed Brittany in the naughty corner like a toddler, explained why she was being placed there, and left her there for 11 minutes. 11 minutes later, Brittany apologized for her behavior and was allowed out of the corner. Brittany then decided to do some drawing with her squeezy felt tip pens. While doing this, she accidentally squeezed some black ink on the wall.
Whoops,
she said as she inspected what had happened. Rather than go and tell either of her parents about it, she decided to draw on the wall. Tony came to check on her and was disappointed in her.
Oh, Brittany, what have you done? Surely you know it's wrong to draw on walls.
When Serena came in and saw the drawing on the wall, she knew Brittany must have done it. She smacked her around the head and stood before her with her hands on her hips.
You are grounded, young lady. Do you hear me? That's very naughty and babyish. How dare you draw on the wall?
She scolded, sat down, turned Brittany over her knee, and smacked her bottom.
You really are a very naughty girl.
She scolded. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Semajically AI. This is the 6th episode, and you are about to hear this story, A Trip to the Moon. When I was young, I would dream a lot about finding a rocket and going to the moon, and my parents would tell me it was a pipe dream. But then, one day, my teacher told us we were going to be visiting the Space Administration, and they were going to show us a space launch. The school told me that if I wanted to go with them, I had to be good and work hard, as this trip was not for naughty girls who slacked off on their schoolwork and played their teachers up. So I buckled down and started working hard and behaved as well as I could, earning my right to go on the special trip. The next Thursday, we headed off to the Space Administration for our tour. Our tour guide was a very level-headed man named Buzz Benjamin. He showed us the interior of one of their space shuttles, and I was most impressed with it, as he told us that this was the shuttle 3 of their finest astronauts would be launched into space that afternoon, and they were being sent to the moon. At lunchtime, my teacher noticed I was missing, so everyone had to search for me. I was trying on a spacesuit and it was very comfortable, and then I snuck aboard the mission to the moon and hid in the shuttle. And so, unbeknownst to them, I was launched into space with them, and I managed to stay hidden until we landed on the moon and snuck out onto the moon's surface with them. That's when the 3 astronauts on the mission noticed me, caught me before I could escape, and radioed mission control to let them know they'd found me and caught me sneaking up to the moon with them. They then sent me back to base with some astronauts who had come to take me back to my class in the Space Administration headquarters to be disciplined by the man in charge. And my teacher, who told me she knew it was a mistake to trust me on this trip, as she knew I was going to be naughty. I was 12 years old at the time and had wandered off like a little child. My parents were livid when they found out what I did. and I was grounded for several weeks for my disgraceful behaviour. I was banned from all school outings from then on as well. It was very well deserved now that I look back
Hi
on
guys, and welcome back to Semajically AI. This is the 7th episode, and we're about to tell you the story of Destiny. Our story begins in London, England in 1884 when Marion and Patrick Stewart were welcoming their newborn daughter Destiny to the world. They loved her very much and wanted her to have a good life. In 1885, she started walking and talking, but she could only say 2 words at that point. In 1886, she was playing in her playpen when Marion walked past her, and she sat there looking rigid, and her eyes glazed over, showing her a vision of Marion tripping on a wooden block, and yelled, "Careful, Mummy." Marion stopped, picked up her block and put it back in the playpen before picking Destiny up and hugging her. "Thank you, darling," she said. In 1887, she was splashing about in the sink as Marion bathed her when her eyes glazed over, showing her a vision of Patrick being trampled by horses. And this freaked her out so much that Marion had to get her out of the sink, dry, dress and comfort her. That's when a policeman came and told her Patrick had been trampled by horses, meaning he was dead, which was very devastating. In 1893, Destiny was now a healthy young girl of 9 years old and was out running errands for Marion when she received a vision of Marion being attacked and killed by a mugger. She then rushed off to try and save her, but unfortunately she got there too late, as Marion had died in the attack, leaving her orphaned, which meant she was going to be taken to a workhouse. That was, until a kindly man named Steve stepped in and adopted her to prevent her suffering such a cruel fate. He loved her like his own daughter and wanted the best for her.
And those, guys, were the first 7 episodes of Semajically AI. From the beach incident to Destiny, or the Tale of Destiny, as the title says. Anyway, the next 7 episodes, 8 to 14, will be up sometime soon. And you'll see another compilation up tomorrow. I don't know of what yet, I'm still deciding. But until next time, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a magical time.